You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 28. Today, we're introducing you to a brand new series called the Time Chronicles, where Phoebe and I are going to take you through a series of episodes dedicated to one thing: mastering your relationship with time, so you can be more productive and effective at work. And in this very first episode, we're going to talk about your relationship with time. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right. Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on the Mind Your Business podcast. I'm your host, James Wedmore.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And I am very excited about this episode, about this series that we've put together for you guys. I'm pumped.
I'm pumped, too. This is going to be really exciting. But before we get into the episode, can we just scale back a couple days, because you have had a very big week or 2 weeks, and I just wanted to acknowledge you and tell all of our listeners what's been happening with you. So, James, do you want to announce it?
I'll let you do the honors.
Well, now you are Mr. Chelsea Wedmore. It's perfect.
Nice. Yes. Now I am Mr. Wedmore. It's officially. Yes. I just got married a couple days ago. Phoebe, you were at the wedding.
I was at the wedding, and it was such a beautiful wedding in Laguna Beach. There were so many people there. Well, actually, it was quite a small wedding, but overlooking the water. It was a wonderful time, and we danced our way into the night.
Yes. There were some cool people there, though. A lot of
lots of cool people,
like internet marketers and social media expert.
It was like the who's who of online marketing.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But speaking of, I mean, it really is such a, I always do this, or everything has to tie back to what we talk about on the podcast. But, you know, what was the number one thing that people said was that enjoy every moment of this, because it's going to be over so fast. And it's like, please stop saying that. But it's true. It goes by really, really fast. And I know Chelsea and I did a couple things throughout the night to get really present and just try and capture that moment. You know, we were sitting there at the head table, and we just kind of, said, hey, let's just soak this moment in right now. Let's just enjoy this moment. Look around. What do you see? What are you present to? What are you grateful for? And I mean, this is amazing. This is it. We're here right now in this moment. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then even when we were doing our first dance, I whispered to her, I was like, hey, look, everyone's looking at us. Let's look back at them, and there's just all these people looking at you, and it's pretty awesome. But it goes by so fast. And you know what went by even faster is that we did a mini moon at the hotel we got married at. We got married at the Montage in Laguna Beach. And so we stayed there for 3 or 4 nights, and that went by just in a blink of an eye. So amazing. Time
flies when you're having fun. I think we're going to be addressing that. But
yes.
The one thing that I noticed about your wedding was when you guys were actually doing your vows, I felt like you guys were getting really present, and you could see both of you taking deep breaths in and out. And it was just really nice. And I think it allowed for this connection, between you two, and then with like all the guests as well. So that was something that I recognized when I was like, oh yeah, it's really nice that you guys really do. Even though the ceremony was so quick, I felt like in that moment, it was just such a really special moment for you guys. So I loved it. I had a great time, and I'm very congratulatory.
Thank you. Yeah, well, before we get into today's episode, there is a story I do want to share that I think Chelsea's going to hate me for. She always shakes her head and rolls her eyes when I share it, intimate stories about her. But the week leading up to the wedding, and this really is relevant to what we're talking about here. The week leading up to the wedding, we have a fantastic wedding planner. She did everything. It's one of those wedding planners where it's like they make all the decisions. You just boil it down to, you want A or B? Do you want black or white? And it made our lives so much easier that the fact that Chelsea was like, wow, this really does tie in, because she took off, she works in the business with me, but she said, okay, I'm going to spend these next few months just focus on the wedding. The wedding planner and the coordinator at the Montage did so much work that she was kind of left there going, well, what should I do? And they're like, no, you're good. You're good. And so, I tease her lovingly, although it was a brilliant idea, and I'm really, really glad she did it, is she decided to plan a party at our house the day before the wedding. Mm-hmm. And even the wedding planner was like, what are you thinking? You're getting married in 24 hours. You're going to have a party that you're hosting. But she did it, and she pulled it off. And I'm so glad she did, as a side note, just because we had so many people flying. I mean, we had people flying in from Canada, the East Coast, and the United Kingdom. So, you know, if you only have 2 hours, 3-4 hours at a wedding to hang out with them, you feel really guilty if you can't talk to them for more than 5 minutes. So the fact that we had a party the day before for all these people who flew in and just got to hang out with them, it was really great. But here's what happened is, you know, she spent all week planning this party, doing all these amazing things for it. And then we had the rehearsal, and she gets up into her spot where we're supposed to be for the rehearsal. We hold hands, and they're kind of taking us through it. And it hit her like a ton of bricks. And she realized, like, oh my gosh, this week has gone by so fast.
Aww.
And here it is, like a day away. And she was really just like, oh my gosh. And I'm really glad that happened. We're both really glad it happened, because it made us it's kind of like a wake-up call for her more than me, because I'll tell you what I did during that week, which she was rolling her eyes the whole time. But, you know, we said, okay, we're going to be really intentional about enjoying every moment, letting this go, trying to get this time to move as slow as it can and be as present as possible the entire time. And I think we did that. I think we did a great job of that. And that's kind of what happens, right? We get so busy. We get so caught up with work, time flies by. It feels like we are this reactive whim to this thing called time. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this first episode here today. Now, what I did that whole week, I didn't have that experience at all, is I intentionally took the entire week off of work. And I even took anything else off my plate that would have gotten in the way. Normally, I like to go to the gym 3 to 4 times during the week. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to schedule any gym time, no phone calls, nothing. I literally did absolutely nothing. I would get up, I'd meditate, I'd read a book, I'd go for a walk, and then I'd say, hey, let's go to the beach and read a little bit more. And I just really enjoyed every moment of it. And we also made time every day of that week to do something with each other in preparation and celebration for our upcoming wedding.
I thought that was so cute. I saw that on your Instagram. I was like, oh,
yeah, we recreated
or something.
Yeah, we recreated one of our first dates. We went to Disneyland. We saw a movie together at our favorite movie theater, which is one of our favorite things to do. We went on a picnic. So we did something every night. Mm-hmm. So when she was up there and, you know, she teared up at the rehearsal, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's just like, it's just gone by so fast. I'm like, it's here. I feel like I have not even been present to it. I got it, but I was like, I hadn't, because I'd been doing nothing, you know, but intentionally being present to this. And it's kind of a great indicator. The reason I tell that story is it's kind of the theme of what we want to try and get across here as we talk about this thing called time, okay? Because if we look at the problem, we look at the symptoms, I think time, or our relationship to time, is the biggest thing that is affecting and plaguing us as business owners and entrepreneurs. So on Amazon.com, it started as an online digital bookstore, right? Now it's where you get everything from toilet paper to ebooks and physical books. Yeah, I get my toilet paper on Amazon. There is a...
I was about to say cheese. I'm not sure why.
Cheese. Cheese and toilet paper. There is a category in the books, a time management category on Amazon. There are 4,068 books just on time management alone. That's a lot of books.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then we found a really interesting stat that I think people are going to resonate with. A stat that says the average person gets 1 interruption every 8 minutes. And that's approximately 7 in an hour. And over the course of an entire workday, that's about 50 to 60 in one day. And the average interruption can take up to 5 minutes, which totals about 4 hours, or 50% of the average workday. 80% of those interruptions are typically rated as little to no value, creating approximately 3 hours of wasted time per day. So I thought that was fascinating. But what we're going to do, I really got fascinated with time management, productivity, effectiveness, and all this stuff, but I really wanted to approach it from another angle, okay? Because I like to use the analogy of when you have a headache, right? Let's say you have a headache because you've been drinking the night before because you were at a great wedding. So now you got a hangover.
That happened to me.
So what do people do when they have a headache? Well, they take an aspirin or an Advil or leave or something, right? That doesn't solve the problem of the headache. That's just reducing the pain, but it doesn't attack the source, which is, you know, whatever causes a hangover in the first place, like dehydration and, you know, all these other things, right? And so until we address the actual problem, I think what we're left with is just a lot of really cool tips and tricks, but we never really get to the source of it. Does that make sense, Phoebe?
Yeah, it does, definitely.
And I want to say that we are not time experts, let alone time management or productivity experts. I have not read these 4,068 books, nor will I ever do that, and nor will I recommend you to do that. What I really want this to be is an inquiry into time itself. Like, what is time? And why do we have this experience, most of us, a lot of us, that there isn't enough time? And why do we feel like time isn't getting any slower, right? The pace of time isn't getting any slower. My dad shared this with me. You know, he's in his mid-70s, and he said more has changed. He has seen more change in the last 10 years of his life than in the entire 75 years he's been alive. Now, that says a lot. Things are speeding up. Yep. I mean, you just see it with technology and the speed of communication. Things happen at the speed of light right now. And that really can leave people feeling overwhelmed and just out of control and powerless. And just even talking about it can give you anxiety.
Sitting here, I'm like, I know that feeling. I think everybody does, but being in that like frantic state where I'm like, nothing is working. Like it just, I can't do anything to catch up. And so I know that feeling very well.
Yeah, I know. And so I don't necessarily want to say we have the answer, right? Like here is the solution. However, I do want us to keep an open mind. Everybody listening, keep an open mind. We like to take people down the rabbit hole just a little bit. And the first thing that we're stating is that with 4,000 books on time management, which will have cool hacks and tricks. Like I have really cool stuff that we've done to get things done quicker, be more productive. We have that and it's coming. But if there's all these books out there and classes and seminars and workshops and videos, how many of them are the Advils and Aleve to the symptoms of poor time management versus actually getting to the source of the problem? And I believe the source of the problem has to do with our relationship with time. So just like you have a relationship with your father or your mother or your best friend or your wife or your husband, your spouse, you have a relationship with time. And something that I learned a while back is that the relationship that we have, like if someone describes, like Phoebe, if you describe your mom to me, that's an indicator as to your relationship with her. However, I may have a completely different experience when I meet your mom for the first time.
Yeah.
So who's right? Are you right because you know her longer? Or maybe you just have a different relationship. And so, you know, we're going to take a look today into what your relationship with time is. And I want you to look at it as that, not as fact, not as reality, not as an absolute truth for everybody, simply as a relationship that you have. And just like Phoebe could change her relationship with her mother, just like I could change my relationship with my mother, you can change your relationship with time. How's that sound?
Great.
Yeah, it does sound great. I mean, it sounds like a tall order, right?
Exactly. I'm like, well, let's get into it.
Yeah. So again, I think, you know, most of us as entrepreneurs are having that experience of not enough time, of can't get it all done. And so I think this is so, so important. So I think the question I would like to start us with is just to start to daydream the possibilities is what would be possible if you did have enough time? What would be possible if there were no complaints about time in your life? Like whatever complaints you have about time of, I'm too busy, I can't get it done, I'm overwhelmed, because overwhelm is just can't fit enough into the day, right? If you could just disappear that, like take a giant eraser and just erase those, what would be possible then? What would be available to you then? And so what I want to offer to you is, because where I come from, my belief is that we are all meant to live an awesome, happy, extraordinary life. And that we're the only ones that really get in our own way. And that part of life is this journey of discovering how we're doing that and, you know, break through to whole new levels. And so whatever's on the other side of that, I want to say is that that is available to you now, that you are worthy of that you are deserving of that you can have that. And I want to say that it's not time or a lack of time that is keeping you from getting those things that you want. It's simply your relationship or your story that you have about time, and that's it. So we're going to start to play around with that a little bit. In some of our previous episodes, we've mentioned things like the law of attraction. Now, law of attraction gets, it seems like there are people that just choose it like it's a belief system, and there are other people that say it's totally hogwash. I choose to find a lot of truth and validity in it. Okay. And so that's one lens in which we will look at time. And so if the law of attraction is a law, it can basically be used as a tool in our daily lives that allows us to discover that life itself, the things that happen outside of you, like the people in your lives, the events that happen, the things that occur and how it occurs, is simply a mirror for what is going on within. Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your habits, and your beliefs. So whatever is going on outside could be an indicator for what is going on inside. And so if we're running these stories and having these experiences that there isn't enough time, right? And you can just hear it in your language. I mean, that's going to be one of the first things we do is to start to become aware of the complaints and stories and excuses we have around time. Like there isn't enough time. I don't have the time. I'm overwhelmed. I feel rushed. I'm late. This is a waste of my time. That's a huge one for me. What a waste of time. And so if that's the experience that we're having on the outside, what could that say about what's going on the inside? Well, at the end of the day, those are experiences to me that are an experience of a lack of power, a lack of personal responsibility, and ownership. But ultimately, I mean, I'm taking you guys deep down here. I believe what a lot of this comes down to is a lack of self-worth and value. So how did I just bridge a gap from I don't have enough time or I'm too busy to I don't believe I'm worthy. I'm not worthy.
Yikes.
A little bit, because I remember times where I used to go around bragging at how busy I was. I would literally be like, I'm too busy, and I want you to know that. Look at me. Look at how busy I am. Mm-hmm. What was I doing there? I believe that I was trying to prove to others that I was important, that I had something going on, that I was doing something worthy of my time, right? I also had a breakthrough. It was so fascinating to me, is that I was willing to invest my time, like completely sacrifice my time and my energy for something. But I was so stubborn and unwilling to sacrifice money. If I was handed a choice to spend 2 days of my life doing something myself, 10 hours a day, or pay $100 and have it be done for me, I would have chosen to do it myself.
Definitely. I've been in that situation so many times with like building a website when I like built my own, when really I had no idea. So figuring out all the plugins and whatnot, if I had just paid someone a couple $100, I could have had it done in no time.
I think most of us do that. And I think that's where we start out, especially as the startup. I know people are already starting to run the stories of like, well, I don't have the money to do it. I understand. And that's another episode, right? Your relationship with money is another episode. But these are linked. And the first thing I want us to get before we get back to this self-worth and this value and how we perceive ourselves, but we have to start to get that time is our most valuable asset. Or I like to say, my dad would grow up and he would say, time is money. Mm-hmm. And I want to be careful with that because I think there's truth in that, but they cannot be directly linked. They really can't be. So I do like to say that time is our most valuable asset, or our energy is our most valuable asset, right? Because the energy is really how do you spend your time, right? Because you only have so many hours in a day, but you also have only so much energy in a day, right? You ever do something for like 1 hour and you're just exhausted, but there's other things you could do. You could do it all day long. You have a blast doing it. I mean, I'll go surfing for 6 hours in a day. Is that a waste of my time, or do I feel refreshed and alive, rejuvenated after that? That's the best use of my time. Mm-hmm. That's where I get my ideas. That's where the creativity, that's where I get recharged, and then writing or making a video or doing a podcast could be only 30 minutes to an hour, but it is taking some energy out of you. But regardless, time and energy, when it's used up, you don't get it back. Money can be spent and made again. Yet for the majority of us, it is our default way to invest our time and not our money. And I understand the logic and the reality of, well, when you don't have one, you use the other. So I'm not, trying to argue that. But no matter where you are in terms of, your financial status and your time status, how much time you have available to you, I believe that most people are linking time to money.
Absolutely. I feel like that's a very common link. People, obviously as entrepreneurs, when you're starting out, those are like the only two things that you really feel you have control over.
Yeah. So I think people, just look at our first jobs. Most of our jobs are based on how many hours you work or how much hours you spend determines how much money you're going to make. So if you spend more time on something, you start to believe you're going to make more money for that. So there's this linkage with time and money. Okay. And this is something that I believe is ingrained from a very early age. And, one of my mentors told me the story. I'm going to just give the quick abridged version of, the guy who goes to the dentist. He's in total pain. He's got a cavity. He needs his tooth pulled. And it takes 2 minutes to pull his tooth. Pain's gone. He says, that'll be $600. And he goes, $600? That only took you 2 minutes. And his response, of course, was like, if you'd like, I could make it take an hour. Yeah. And it's an example, an illustration of where time spent has nothing to do with money earned. And so what I believe a lot of us are doing is still trying to, and I see myself do this, not as much as I used to, but in order to justify the money we want to make or the money we are making, invest more of our time in order to kind of like balance this out. There are weird things that happen when you do a launch and you make, a ton of money in a short amount of time, or we have like, evergreen funnels that will make money while you're sleeping. It's an awesome experience. But then sometimes you kind of go like, oh, should I add an extra bonus or should I be doing this extra thing here? There's that pull to like, oh, I need to provide more time in order to justify that value. And so I think there is a link that most people have connecting time and money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on board with this.
Good. Okay. You're like, yes.
I'm like nodding my head. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been in all of these situations. So yeah, I definitely get it.
So what is time? I have no idea. We're not the experts here on time. A watch, a clock can tell us the time, but it can't tell us what time is, And what we've really talked about is that we each have a relationship with time. So what's your relationship with time? How do you view time? How do you experience it? Do you say there's just not enough of it? There's only so much in a day, or time is fleeting, or time just seems to fly by, And usually when you feel frustrated, overwhelmed, rushed, or anxious, we're having an experience where our relationship with time doesn't suit us. It doesn't serve us. It's disempowering. And at the end of the day, we're experiencing, if we could just clump that all into one thing, we could just label this relationship we have with time as scarcity, as in there's not enough. So that's how most of us are experiencing time, as there's not enough. And I think there's a reason why. It's because, and we're going to be talking about this, we'll take you guys deep down the rabbit hole with this, but we experience time as absolute and linear. What I mean by that is that you look at your smartphone, you look at your timepiece, and no matter what you do, it's always 1 second, 2, 3, 4. There's this unchangeable, unwavering ticking of a clock. Time is always moving on, no matter whether you're checking your email, doing a webinar, or being distracted by somebody on a phone call. And then that time is always going by. And what we want to start to propose to you is that even if a smartphone or a clock or a watch can measure these units of time as time moves by in a linear fashion, that time is indeed relative. We've all experienced this. I talked about this at the beginning, where our wedding just seemed to fly by in an instant, but we could have moments where it seemed like time did stand still. Or you've had days where you go to an amusement park like Disneyland with your family and the day just flies by. Or you could just look at an amusement park at yourself, like waiting in line could seem to take forever, but being on the ride goes by in like 5 seconds, right? Or, the classic example that I like to give is that you go to the gym and you have a personal trainer. The personal trainer has you put all this weight on a barbell and put that on your shoulders and drop down into a heavy squat and says, great, hold that for 30 seconds. And that becomes the longest 30 seconds of your life, right? So I do want to start to propose that even though all the textbooks of Newtonian time is that it is absolute and unchangeable, and that it is this exterior, unwavering variable that we can't affect, and that perhaps we can experience time differently. And as we proceed through the Time Chronicles, we're going to actually talk to you about concepts such as Einstein time, how we can slow down time, speed it up, and really how we can stop time. I warned you, we'll be taking you a little bit down the rabbit hole, and I'll be sharing you a story that profoundly changed my life and my relationship with time. And again, this is something that is, we're not experts at this. I have to say that so many times because like time itself is something that is, you start watching videos and reading books and stuff about, the space-time continuum and relativity and all this stuff. And I mean, it'll just like make your head explode.
I think that's what I was saying right before we started this episode. I'm like, it is just sometimes you're reading something about this and it's like a big jumble of words.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely say this is not my forte, not my area of expertise.
But I will say that the biggest thing for me is for years I've had breakdowns around time. When something would go wrong, the place I would always go is, what a waste of I just wasted my time. Mm. And so I realized like, oh my gosh, I'm coming from this place that there's not enough time and it's too precious, which it is. Like you have to value it. You really do. But you're going to be constantly in a breakdown if you're worried about it, whether or not you're wasting it and stuff. And so we're going to hopefully take you through a massive paradigm shift by the end of these episodes to get you to redefine your relationship with time. But I think the first step is to identify what is your relationship with time as it stands right now, and to really go on a mental diet of starting to point out and stop yourself from saying things like, I don't have enough time, or there's not enough time in the day, or whatever. Because we are going to continue to reinforce those stories and find evidence to support those beliefs. So we have to be able to point it out and become aware of it. We can begin to stop it. And then we can replace it with new empowering beliefs. But at the end of the day, we have to face the facts that everyone on this planet at least, has the same amount of hours in a day as you. So when you're sitting there saying, I can't possibly do it, there's just not enough time in the day. Guarantee you there is somebody else out there that has done it. Somebody who is moonlit or moonlighted. Someone who is a mom with 2 kids who made it happen. Someone who had a part-time job, or someone who's already running an existing business. Someone starting with no money whatsoever. And so you really have to look, is this a valid fact that you just can't accomplish your dreams or reach your goals because time is this thing that you have no control over? Or is it just a big excuse that keeps you from actually reaching your goals?
Okay, so when you're saying that you need to create or identify your relationship with time, are you saying that you need to pull out all the things in your vocabulary and then put it on like a continuum as far as I'm really good with time and I have a great relationship, or I have a really crappy one? Or is this more of like an identification as far as like, here's just what I'm saying and we're going to go ahead and stop it? Does there need to be a good or a bad, or is it just, it is what it is?
Yeah, I think it is just what it is. I mean, you're the one who's going to determine whether it's good or bad, but what is determining whether it's good or bad is usually, is it serving you or not?
Right.
Right. And so what I'm asking our listeners to do is just look at your relationship with time, just as you would look at your relationship with your mother or your father. Some people are saying, I talk to my mom every day. I tell her everything. She's my best friend. Other people say, I haven't spoken to my mom in 10 years. We could say, one's good, one's bad, or we could just say one's this and one's that. And then we could ask the question, well, is that serving me? Is that really helping me? And the thing is if you have goals, if you have desires, and like I said earlier, my belief is that if you have a want, if you have a desire, if you have a dream, and it is a true, real dream that you created, not something that someone else told you, this is what you're supposed to have, but it's yours, that you can have that. That nothing should, well, things will stop you from it, but it is an inevitability for you. It is a possibility for you. And if you have a dream, a goal, a desire, whatever, and time is the story, the excuse, the reason, or the belief that you can't have it, well, we can take all the time management classes, tricks, hacks, and apps and software in the world, but when are we going to actually address your relationship with time, right? So same thing with your mom. If you haven't spoken to your mom in 10 years, but you start dressing different and writing her cards and doing things, but you haven't addressed how you perceive her. You haven't dealt with who she is and how you experience her. It's going to still be a bumpy road. Does that make sense?
Yep, I get it.
So I want to revisit this thing that we kind of looked at, is that most of us, myself included, none of this is coming from a place of like, we've figured it all out, we're perfect, and learn from us. That's not it at all. It's just a lot of this is a lot of self-observation and awareness and trial and error over the years. But I know for myself specifically that there has been a link to time and money, okay? Right? And what I mean by that is that we've been raised from a place that if you want to provide more value, you do it through your time. And here's an experience where you know that this is true. Have you ever had money come in a way that we call easy money? Phoebe, have you ever had easy money?
Definitely.
Okay, so tell me, what is the easy money? Tell me a little bit about that.
I got a check in the mail for my birthday.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Money.
Yeah. Okay. So that is easy money. Now, was there any guilt or like, oh my gosh, like the first, when you opened it up and you saw the check, what was your first initial experience of that?
I mean, there's a little bit of guilt because I know that the person giving it to me probably gave me more than they should have.
But why is that? What does that even mean? Why did they give you more than they should have? Where is the, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times I just like to play with the words that we use, but where is there this like rule or indicator of what they should be giving you for your birthday?
Yeah, I think just I got to a certain age and I don't expect people to be giving me money. And so when they do, or I don't expect presents or anything. So when they do, I'm always like really surprised. And so when somebody sent me this check, it was, I guess, more than I thought that maybe I would have given them.
Okay.
Maybe that's where it was.
Got it. Yeah. Well, if we've had this experience of easy money, whether it was a birthday check or it was from work, services rendered, business, if you feel guilt, if you feel a sense of guilt, one of two things is happening, or a combination of both. One is that you're feeling like you weren't worthy of this money, like you didn't deserve it in some regards. And then the other one comes from a lack of abundance of money. You know, maybe where Phoebe went with this story is, oh my gosh, this person couldn't afford this, or what are they sacrificing in their life in order to give me this type of money? And both of these are just examples to look at, indicators of where our beliefs can be impacting us elsewhere. So I've seen this a lot, and maybe you've experienced this in your life, right? But the more time you spend on something, or the more money you want, you spend more time, right? So that if you have spent a certain amount of hours, you believe that you are deserving or worthy of that certain amount of money. And I know there are a lot of people that are listening on this call that are just saying, yeah, and what's your point? And my point is, that is a limiting belief. That is going to hold us back because there are only so many hours in the day. No matter how much we change our relationship with time, time is still a finite number. And so what I've experienced myself and what I've experienced in others is that they want to increase the amount of money they want to make, the amount of revenue, sales, profit, etc. The only thing they feel like they have control over is time. I'll take on more clients, I'll work harder, I'll work longer, I'll do more stuff for them. So I'm going to give you an example of this that came to mind. I'm going to try and keep it anonymous here, but I think when my friend hears, he'll know it's him. So I have a good friend of mine who has been doing client work for some time, for several years. So you pay him, he does the work for you, right? Very simple. But recently, he's created a desire in which he wants to scale a little bit more. So he decided, I'm going to create kind of like a course, an online course, a digital training course. However, when he sold the course, he's still selling time with him. So you buy a course, but then you're getting all this done for you stuff as well. And I was like, well, what are you doing? And then he's underpricing the course. and I can see it's clear as day. It's clear as day, is that he doesn't see his own value yet. He doesn't see the value he's providing. And because of that, he is going to spend more of his time and limit his growth and his revenue. Does that make sense? I can go deeper with that, Phoebe.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So you're just saying that, well, in this instance with this man, that how would he change this situation?
Well, right now, if you purchase, you're going to get his digital training, which we know from like an online course. Well, that's scalable, right? Whether I sell one of the course or 1 million of the courses, I don't need to invest any extra time. That makes sense, right? That's scalable. So, if I sell 100 courses, I don't need to serve 100 people because it's all automated with systems and software. It's done. However, if I include with that, you're going to get an hour of coaching session with me and my team is going to build XYZ for you. Well, how much has he now just limited himself? And so where he finds himself now is that he just sold the crap out of this offer, but his time is full because he's got to fulfill on this product. And the price was too cheap because he didn't value his time, that he's really not left with that much revenue to make it be like, oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what we tend to do. For me, it's very clear that there is a clear link with time and money. That he says, I want to make a certain amount of money, so I'll give people more of my time. And we really need to separate the two. What I'm trying to get at, guys, is that there is a link with our self-worth and our value and time, and there is a link between time and money. So we say, I want to make more money. I have to be worthy of that money. And because if I spend more time, I'll be more worthy, we just work more time. And so if we can start to separate these and say they don't have anything to do with each other, then we may be able to take back and have a little bit more power with our relationship with time. That's what I believe is the biggest source, is that if you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, burned out, frustrated, and anxious, like there's not enough time in the day, it could be, maybe, perhaps, one possibility is that you've created goals, desires to make a certain amount of money, but on some level, we don't feel worthy of that money. And so we use our connection with time. We spend more time doing this, more energy doing that, until we feel like completely overwhelmed and burnt out. Does that make sense?
It does. And just to kind of add on to what you're saying is, so because he has had this experience of like, maybe he's going to be a little bit run down because he has no more time at the end of the day. And that time, which we've talked about in previous episodes where, the work is in the play. And so now he doesn't have enough time to kind of replenish his energy. And so now he could deliver maybe a subpar product or a subpar service because he doesn't, have the energy to fulfill on that.
He could. I mean, that's absolutely a possibility, because we can't get poor enough to help the poor. Right. We can't get sick enough to help the sick. So absolutely. I mean, what are you doing? And we'll get into that. Absolutely. We'll talk about how important play and planning is, that, if you're not at 100%, you can't help, you can't serve, you can't show up in the way that you need to show up. So if you're out there like not undercharging and overworking, how much value are you really providing if you're burnt out, exhausted, resenting your clients? How about that? Has anyone listening resented their clients because they're like, gosh, I'm doing so much. You start doing the math. You're like, at this rate, I'm just working $10 an hour right now. Right? That's a very common thing. We hear that all the time. So one of the things I love, I heard this on another podcast, which I love. It talks about your relationship with money. If you want to make more money, two things: solve bigger problems and reach more people. One or the other or both, right? None of that says spend more time, work longer, right? Sacrifice more of your time. Just solve bigger problems and reach more people. The whole beauty of the internet, guys, everyone listening, is that you can do both of those things absent of time. Time is irrelevant. This podcast, I can take this podcast, add it into my email autoresponder series, and for years to come, it can be pushed out to new subscribers. Automatic. It doesn't take any more time from me, yet people are still hearing this message. New people every day. We look at our stats on the podcast, just to stay with the podcast example, and I see episodes that we came out in January that are still getting hundreds and hundreds of views and downloads a month. That's something I created in January with Phoebe. Haven't touched it since. and it's still impacting people, right? And so that's where we're going to start to head into. In fact, we have an entire episode in the Time Chronicles series. I like Time Chronicles. It's a cool name. Dedicated to leverage. I think something that I've gotten really good at, I think I actually, to be a little braggadocious if you don't mind, is that I have been, since I started my business, really good at leveraged opportunities. Doing something once and seeing how I can get it to work for me 3, 4, 5 different ways. We have an entire episode dedicated to that because we shared that at our mastermind, didn't we? And people were kind of like, you could see the light bulbs.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think that was my biggest takeaway because I had told you to mention it. I was like, that's something that you do really well. And there's so many people in our mastermind that could use that little light bulb moment. Definitely.
So I think I learned this from Craig Ballantyne. He talks about the 5% rule. And I love this because I've always observed super awesome, successful people. And I noticed that one of the number one things that separates these successful people is we all have the same amount of time, right? So here's somebody who has what you want. They have the same amount of hours as you do. But when they get up, they know what to focus their time on. That's it. They're not better looking. Trust me, they're not a better communicator, speaker, necessarily. Look at me. Like, I'm the awkward, shy, nerdy introvert from high school, okay? But these people know what to spend their time on. And so the 5% rule is very similar to the Pareto principle, right? You can see this in all areas of our life. It's like a phenomenon of human behavior. But the 5% rule is that 5% of your activities are the activities that yield 95% of your revenue or your results. And in terms of business and entrepreneurship, profit and revenue and sales is the first result that we need to look at. You don't have a business if you don't make money. You can't stay in business if you don't make money. And so a lot of times we spend our time doing all these other things to try and prove to everybody that we're worthy of that money, right? And we'll get into a lot of those things. A lot of things that people are telling you that you should be doing that you don't. How we just kind of have some misconceptions around how we should be running our business. I mean, there are people out there that say you want, and there's always both sides to every argument. But I don't agree with this argument, is that, hey, you start a business, spend the first 6 months or a year not selling anything, not doing anything, just putting out free content out to the world. I think that's crazy. I think that's nuts. And maybe that's just me. But, I have a coaching client, or Lisa Keeker, she's in the mastermind group. And when she started working with me, she had no online presence, no list, no fan page, nada, no product. Unbelievable. And in 9 months, she did over $400,000 in sales. If I would have, and like $300,000 in the first 6 months, something like that. If I would have said, no, Lisa, don't do that. Let's just spend the first 6 to 9 months just writing blog posts. Could you imagine how fast she would have fired me? You know what I mean? She would have been very unhappy with that.
Well, and she might have gotten burned out.
Yes. You want to fuel your passion. Your passion is fueled with profit. And I'm sorry if, some people don't like to talk about money and they're not in it for the money. But listen, money pays the bills. Money gives you your time back. I don't know if we'll get into this in one of our future episodes, but the things that money has allowed, because that's what I've started to see, was that like, oh my gosh, like you can make as much money as you want, but you can't make more time. We'll show you how to change your relationship with time, and you can't bend it. But if you're still doing everything yourself, you're limited a lot. Right. So I wrote a blog post about this. I started doing things like everything that you need from like the supermarket, like your essentials, like the paper towels, the toilet paper, the toothbrush, the toothpaste, all those things. Like I set that up on auto ship on Amazon. So like every month I'd get a new toothbrush, and every X amount of weeks I got toilet paper and paper towels and this and this and this. It was all automated, all sent to my house. I wouldn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to use brain power or time going there. I got a personal chef because I wanted to eat healthy, but I didn't want to spend, it's not that I didn't have the time, and that's a huge distinction because I almost said that. I didn't want to spend my time cooking, so I had someone else do that for me. And I had someone who would come to the house and pick up the laundry. I had someone cleaning the house, all these things, so that I could focus on the 5% of activities that I know have a direct impact on the bottom line. And that's your goal. If you're in business, if you're the CEO, if you're the business owner, and that's not your focus, you're doing something wrong. James, I thought we were talking about time. It's all connected, in my opinion. So, want to make more money, solve bigger problems, reach more people, identify the 5% of activities that are yielding 95% of the results. Okay? And what you'll discover is that we all have limiting beliefs around time. We all do. I do. Still do. What we need to start doing is identifying what our relationship is with time, identifying what those limiting beliefs are, what are the stories we tell ourselves, what are the complaints that we say about it, and we need to begin to rewire those beliefs. Because I do believe we do have the time to be, do, and have what we really, truly want in our lives. Time doesn't have to be the excuse or the reason why we don't get what we want. So we can get what we want in our lives, but we can't have it all. Right? Just like when you go out to dinner. It's your birthday, take you out, and I say, Phoebe, treating you to dinner. What do you want? You can have anything on the menu. You can't have it all because you're going to get stuffed anyways. You won't be able to eat it all. But you can have anything. You want the lobster? Get the lobster. Right? And that's how I view it. So we can't have it all, but you can have what you truly want. It's a choice. And, there's that great example of, when it comes to time management and managing projects, or if you try and chase 2 rabbits, you'll never get one, right? And I think that's what we're doing. But then you got to ask, why? Why are we doing that? And I believe it's because we don't believe that we can have one, or we don't believe that we're chasing the right one, or we don't believe that we're worthy of that one. Okay, so there's some great books, some great resources, that aren't just about time management now, because this is really the trend. This is where you see things going. Books like Essentialism and The One Thing. Have you read The One Thing, Phoebe?
I have read that one.
It's a good book. I'm reading it right now, and it, really comes from a place, and we'll talk about this in a future episode, about identifying what is that one most important thing that you can be doing today in your business, and really starting from that place instead of trying to do it all, right? And one of the things that the book talks about, I think Essentialism talks about this as well, is the concept of context switching, right? And we'll get deeper into things like this, but context switching really describes the waste of time that people have when they're switching between projects. So a lot of us have 3, 4, 5, 10 projects that we're doing at once, and we think that's making us more productive and we're getting more done and all this stuff because we have all these different things that we're doing. We're all guilty of this, right? Myself included. However, what we don't realize is that the waste of time that is added up every time we switch between these projects. And that's no good. And the more projects you're working on, the more you realize you're spending time in this actual switching of the context, going from one to the next, right? Where you're like, okay, where did I leave off? Or where was that link? Or what's this? And blah, blah, blah. That can be one of the worst things you do. So in one of the future episodes, we'll also talk about how we were able to do a project in 2 weeks, start to finish. It was an entire promotion and project, 2 weeks with 3 people. And it was absolutely awesome how we did that. It had to do simply by focusing all of us on one thing. We focused on one thing until completion. So what we've really done in this episode is opened a conversation, opened a door to discuss time, and not necessarily just yet from all the cool hacks that are going to save you time, because there's some interesting phenomenon that exist out there. One of which is a concept called Parkinson's law, which is the idea that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. And the classic example of this is that the busy CEO and his grandmother both have to write a thank you card. And the busy CEO has a very busy schedule, so he gets the thank you card. His assistant goes and gets it for him and, writes it really quickly, and he just signs his name. Took 30 seconds of his day. Done. But his grandmother takes all day because she went to 3 different locations shopping for the perfect card. She spent an hour at each place looking for that perfect card, then comes home. She's researching a poem that she wants to add to it and the perfect thing to say. She writes a rough draft. You get the idea, right? So it takes her all day. It takes him 30 seconds. And so Parkinson's law is this idea that the work expands as to fill the time available for its completion. Even in our 2-week project that we did, we realized how much just started to get done right there at the end. Even in our wedding, we realized, wow, all these things that get wrapped up right there at the end. His work truly does seem to expand as to fill the time available for its completion. So a lot of phenomena, a lot of interesting things that show up when it comes to our relationship with time, how we deal with time, how we get things done, how productive and how effective we are. Are we procrastinating? Are we constantly overwhelmed? Do we feel like there's not enough time? And we couldn't possibly leave this conversation to just one episode. And so this is the beginning. And so what we're going to do is we're going to introduce you to a couple more episodes. The next episode, holy cow, we are basically we're going to talk to you about this concept that we got from a book by Gay Hendricks from The Big Leap called Einstein Time. And we're going to show you how you can create a new relationship with time so you can literally stop time. That is a little crazy, I know. We'll talk more about that. And then we're going to share with you a lot of the limiting beliefs that we have, not about time itself, but the limiting beliefs we have about business, money, and self-worth, and what it really takes to build a business that I believe are affecting your time, and how we can take a look at those and call BS on those limiting beliefs and create some more empowering ones. And then we're going to end the Time Chronicles with some cool, practical left brain stuff. We're not going to leave you just in esoteric, theoretical, right brainville. Okay, we're going to take you into the left brain tactical action strategies. And we're going to take you through a series of about 11 specific things that you can do to start to get your time back. These are 1s and 0 action items that you can do. Extremely powerful because I get obsessed about being efficient. I want my entire team to be efficient. And we've spent a lot of time obsessing over how to do that. And then we're going to expand upon one of those and talk about my second favorite word in the dictionary, which is leverage. I'm going to show you how you can change your thinking so that you focus on things that can be leveraged. You do it once, and it can work for you for weeks, months, years to come. That's a good use of your time. So we are just getting started. And if you're liking this journey thus far, I invite you to stay tuned or go ahead and listen to our next episodes in the Time Chronicles series.
So if you haven't left us a review on iTunes yet, head over to jameswedmore.com/iTunes and let us know what you think. And also, as you know, we've moved now to 2 episodes a week, with the second one being a listener question of the week. So if you would like to be featured on the podcast, submit your question using the link in the show notes or on our website at www.mindyourbusinesspodcast.com.
I'm James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.